Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for you today. We will be covering the USMNT getting stunned by Panama. We'll preview tomorrow's Copa America game between Brazil and Paraguay. We'll talk about Italy and Switzerland, preview that matchup. We'll also preview the matchup between Germany and Denmark. And make sure you stick around for the end of the show where I'll be giving you my thoughts on some reactions to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. Before we start off, I'd like to ask that you like and follow the show. Also, we get a number of questions from viewers that come in during the show, so to ensure that your questions get read on the air, I ask that you use the Tips and Donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with your questions. This puts your questions at the top of the list so that I can see it, and it also really helps grow the show. So again, the link is gsmcpodcast.net. We gotta start off with the USMNT getting stunned getting absolutely stunned by Panama. The USMNT came into this game with 3 points off of a win from Bolivia against Bolivia. Panama coming off in a more desperate situation as they fell to Uruguay 3-1, and Panama was able to defeat the United States men's national team 2-1 behind the goal in the 83rd minute from Jose Fajardo that gave Panama the victory, essentially. Go-ahead goal. They also actually had a man sent off in this game later on in the 88th, 89th minute. But the main story is the Timothy Weah being red carded, because that was the real red card that affected the game. The Panamanian red card came in the 88th minute, much later in the game. The red card from Timothy Weah came 18 minutes in and just completely changed the game for the USMNT. The USMNT came out on the front foot as expected, going up against Panama on the front foot, creating opportunities. Actually ended up getting a goal that got called out for offsides. Tim Ream ended up being slightly off. VAR came in and ruled it off. And, it was smooth sailing from the US. It was really smooth from the United States at that point. Then this moment of madness occurs in the 18th minute off the ball. Timothy Weah appears to strike one of the Panamanian players on the head. It looked like a open-handed hit. Looked like more like a slap. It wasn't really a punch, but still straight into the head of the Panamanian player. In this day and age, with video, with the amount of cameras there are, with VAR, you can't get away with things like that. VAR eventually ruled it to be a red card, and from then on, it completely changed how the game was going to be played, playing with 10 men that early on. But that did not stop the U.S. though from immediately being able to get that go-ahead goal, which is 1-0 to make it 1-0, which was an absolute banger of a goal from Fuller and Balogun, who's really came into form over this Copa America up to this point, scoring a goal in the last game, and the overall performance he had this game with a wonder goal. It was a world-class finish right off the post. Couldn't place it perfectly. Couldn't place it even more perfect. And yet United States was able to get that goal, get that 1-0 lead, and from then on, you find yourself in a situation, well, we're down to 10 men, we still ended up getting the lead. We have to, the very disappointing thing is, like, they had the lead. They got the lead after they got the red card, and they weren't able to close that out. They weren't able to defend that lead, and you kind of have to have a sense of realization. Okay, we get this goal lead. It's time to close shop, park the bus, and just play for that. But Panama immediately, I'm talking about in a span of 15 minutes after, were able to, not 15, 3 minutes later, was able to find a equalizing goal. And honestly, that goal was a well-worked goal from Panama. It was a brilliant play from the team, moving it from one end. You could see the midfielders, they had a lot of ground that they had to cover. You could really tell how hard it was to play 10 men. On that goal, the ball got passed around the midfield. You see Gio Reyna and Tyler Adams They accidentally pressed the open man, and the one ball in behind opened up so much space. Then McKinney, he stepped up, and then and then they eventually found I forgot the name of the striker, Blackman. It eventually found Blackman. Looked like initially it took a deflection when I watched it live, but because it looked like he kind of scuffed the shot, but it still found its way into the corner, found its way past Matt Turner, and from then on, it was clear to me that the U.S. were going to be in trouble in this game in terms of getting the result, and it's a very important game for the USMNT, very important for Panama as well. But now with that goal coming in, making it 1-1, you find yourself in a struggling position. And from then on out, it was just United States defending. I thought they did dig in though. I thought the work rate was there from the team. The effort was there. There was a lot of ground that they had to cover. But overall, they just couldn't get it done. They did defend well for long stretches, and then in my opinion, the thing that's also a lot that is actually frustrating about this is an individual mistake, in my opinion, from Anthony Robinson on that goal. When you look at the fact that, number one, when the initial ball comes into his area, he kind of loses track of the Panamanian attacker on the backside of him, and then to add on to even more of his mistake, he decides to commit on a ball into one of the other Panamanians. He doesn't get near it. He finds the space to bring in the cross, and then 2-1. And then even on top of that, Ethan Horvath, he gets two hands, not even one hand. He gets two hands on the ball. So you could argue maybe he could have done better on the goal. By the way, Matt Turner had to get subbed off, injured. Looked really out of it, had to get subbed off at halftime. And yeah, Matt Turner came in or Ethan Horvath came in my opinion, in that second goal. He could have done better. He gets two hands on the ball. Now I know it's direct, and that's hard to make it whenever it's so close, so point blank. But if you get two hands on the ball, you should be able to do better. And it's really disappointing the ways that they conceded, especially that second goal, when there's numerous ways to concede playing against 10 men, and that way it's just frustrating, or playing with 10 men, and that way is a little bit frustrating. It's also frustrating the way that they got to 10 men. When you look at Timothy Weah, that was no play that affected the game. You don't excuse it. You still get criticism, but you can understand, one of those denying obvious goal scoring opportunity, red cards, or maybe a dangerous play that he did on accident. But this is just complete and utter selfishness and really a bad moment for Timothy Weah, who hasn't had a history of this. He's never really proven to be this kind of player. This is kind of a one-off situation. But still, in this moment, do you remember the way Sergiño Dest was criticized? His criticism was really bad. It was really, really bad after that red card. I think this is just as bad, and if not worse, because of the situation we find ourselves in. That was I believe it was a Nations League game. Not the biggest stakes in the world, in my opinion, compared to this Copa America. This is potentially kind of knock you out of Copa America in the group stages. It's a huge red card. And also another big thing about this is that that slap or punch or whatever you want to call it, that may very well cost Greg Berhalter his job, because I'll tell you what, even the U.S. men's national team in this U.S. Soccer Federation that I'm not a fan of, I've been clear about it, not the team but the federation, even they're not going to be able to, in my opinion, be able to write off not getting out of the group stages with Panama and Bolivia. Maybe this red card gives them an out, saying, finds himself a scapegoat, but there is no way. And also, the U.S. did get very lucky at the same time because Uruguay was able to put a pounding on Bolivia today. I believe it was 5-1. So they have extreme goal differential now over Panama and the U.S. So they've put themselves in a situation where they're gonna rest, and that does give the USMNT a chance. If Uruguay rests, it really does. It's a big thing. But at the same time, the U.S. are going in there needing the win because they cannot rely on Bolivia taking points off Panama. They can't rely that. Bolivia is the worst team in this tournament. Panama is a better team than Bolivia. So they can't go in with that sort of mentality that a draw might be enough. No, the U.S. men's national team has to win and has to beat Uruguay. And that's exactly the opposite of what the U.S. men's national team wanted this Uruguayan game to be. At max, they wanted this game to be the group title, the group first place group decider, not to keep them in the Copa America. Huge loss for the USMNT. Greg Berhalter, look, I've made it clear on my thoughts on him on not being a good enough manager. As far as this game, I don't have major critiques of him because being a red card puts you in a dangerous situation already. But I will say this: at halftime, he makes a triple substitution. One is replacing Matt Turner, okay? The other two is taking off Tyler Adams and Giovanni Reyna. Now, Tyler Adams, maybe I'll excuse this because he just has a 45-minute threshold. But Giovanni Reyna is a player that, you can't play him in midfield with 10 men. Just not enough work rate from him, not enough legs. So why wait till halftime to make that decision? Why not, if you're going to make it at halftime, why not sub him out immediately after the red card and completely change it up? That's what the top managers would do. They were not going to wait 45 minutes for morale or anything like that. If he believes that Gio Reyna can't do the job with 10 men in midfield, you either move him to a different position and adjust it or blah, 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 or you sub him out immediately. There's no time to waste. There is no time to waste, and they went on it very soon after to score that equalizer. So, yeah, it's but at the end of the day, he's not the main one to blame for today's performance. Today's performance has to go a lot, squarely on Timothy Weah. You can't make the mistake that he made, but, the USMNT's Copa America, just like Mexico, has gotten to the point where the U.S. Copa America is in grave danger, and because of the fact that Uruguay is probably not going to play their first team, probably similar level. But if Uruguay was not resting players, I'm going to the point where I'm saying it's over for the U.S. There's no way they get to the knockout stage. That's just the reality we find ourselves in. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will talk about Brazil as they take on Paraguay tomorrow.
Looking for...
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
before the break, we discussed the USMNT getting stunned by Panama. We move on to talk about Brazil. They are coming off a disappointing performance as they drop points to Costa Rica, 0-0 draw. They want to right their wrong and get back on track in this game against against Paraguay. Big game for them because they do not want to enter that Colombia game anything less than 4 points. It's looking likely already at this point that the Panama is gonna have. Not Panama. I keep saying Panama. That Colombia are probably gonna have 6 points entering that final game. Because I think it's fairly likely that they get the 3 points versus Costa Rica, and you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're not playing to win the group in that final game. You're playing just to be at the tournament, which is a dangerous place to find yourself in as a Brazil national team, especially going up against a Colombia that, in my opinion, is one of the stronger teams in this tournament. Brazil, they really were on the main foot against Costa Rica. They entered the ball in the Costa Rica penalty area 49 times, which is the highest ever figure in a Copa America match since the statistic started being recorded in 2011, which is, it shows how much of a main foot they were on the game. But Paraguay, they weren't able to get the breakthrough, which is really frustrating for Brazil. I told you my thoughts on Vinicius and him and his level of performances and the difference in levels when he's playing for Real Madrid compared to Brazil. When you look at Real Madrid, I believe at Real Madrid, or in general, he's the joint leader for goals and assists, or he is the leader in terms of goals plus assist contributions in Champions League knockout stage is history. And you compare that for what he's done with Brazil, a total of 3 goals and 31 caps. The levels are nowhere near the same between the two, and it's really frustrating. But they're going up against a Paraguay team that's not really strong. They do have Miguel Almiron and Julian Encisos, who I like Julian, and I do not know how to pronounce his last name. But he's a very, very good player, and he was able to get on the score sheet last game, and maybe he can give combination of him and Almiron's pace can give Brazil a little bit of issues in transition. But Julio Enciso and Miguel Almiron, they're 2 really good players, so you can't count them out to give Brazil a little bit of trouble. Now Paraguay, they have only won 1 game in their last 6 competitive matches, with drawing 2 and losing 3. That's a bad record, and it shows the levels that this Paraguayan team is at. But Brazil are coming off some pretty bad form as well. In general, in competitive play, they've been really woeful in World Cup qualifiers. In the friendlies, the last 2 games were disappointing games, and even the last 3 games, to be honest. It took a last-minute winner to get past Mexico, a weak Mexico team, as we've seen this Copa America. They drew against a U.S. team that lost 5-1 to Colombia and just lost to Panama a few hours ago. And then the 0-0 frustrating goalless draw against Costa Rica. But there's just much more needed in the final third from Brazil for them to be competitive. Defensively, as a unit, yes, they're good with defending on the ball, but I think there's some mistakes in that defense. You're looking at guys like Danilo, Marquinhos, players that are kind of past their prime. I don't know about Marquinhos. Marquinhos is more bad formish because he's not old. I believe he's 30, but his performance levels for PSG has diminished. There's no 2 ways about that. And then Danilo, he's past his prime, so it's disappointing. I do think Atletico Mineiro's fullback Arana, who actually played the full 90 minutes, is very, very good. Even Dorvial praised him after the has been praising him a lot. He's a very, very good player, and there's no doubt about it. I think since Dorvial Jr. came in, there's been a little bit more structure in the Brazil team in terms of how they press when they lose the ball, how defensively they don't give up much space, which was really bad under Fernando Diniz during the World Cup qualifiers. There was a lot of space given up. It was a lackluster, lack of energy press-wise at certain moments. I think he's come in and he's done a good job, Dorvial Jr., but I don't think it's enough because I just don't think this team has the quality at that Brazilian national team level. The flair is not there that they used to have as well. You see all these players that are talented and that they play at good clubs. You look at Rodrigo, Vinicius, Rafinha. Those are Barcelona to Real Madrid players. It's a Premier League midfield of Lucas Paquetá and Bruno Guimaraes. João Gomez. He's gonna make a move eventually to a big European club as well. So there's still players within this team, but it's Brazil. Brazil is very talented. And by the way, João Gomez actually does play for Wolves. I'm saying he's going to make a move to a bigger club in Europe, potentially. But João Gomez, by the way, was shocking in that Costa Rica game, in my opinion. I think it was really frustrating watching him in midfield. But, overall, must win for Brazil. It's clear from what we saw in the opening matches or so. Argentina, Colombia, Uruguay, those are really the three clear favorites. Don't think Brazil is in that level at this point in time, especially with the likes of Vinicius not showing up the way he shows up for Real Madrid, the way he does for Brazil. I don't think Brazil is at that level at this point in time, but they're still a very talented team. But that's always going to be the case for Brazil in terms of talent. They're always going to produce talent. Even the young guys coming up, that's the thing that gives Brazil a little bit of a shining hope. They got a lot of good young guys coming in. A lot of young players getting scouted. None bigger than Endrick, who really could come in and be the next, the next guy. But I have to be honest, in my lifetime of watching football, this is the worst Brazil national team. And honestly, it's only gotten worse over time. I think 2018 was a very, very good team in my opinion, and that was much better than the 2014 team. But, there's been a steady decline amongst the quality that we get from the Brazil national team. They haven't got past the quarters since, I believe, since they won it all in 2002. I believe so. They have not got past the quarters. Actually, no. In 2014, they didn't make the semis. But besides that, where they made the semis and, being at home virtually, handed them, gave them the route to get to the semifinals, that home crowd. Because let's be honest, that Brazil team was weak, and that Brazil team was weaker than the team that got eliminated in the 2018 in the quarters, the team that got eliminated in the 2022 in the quarters, the team that got eliminated in 2010 in the quarters, the team got eliminated in 2016 quarters. That 2014 team is the worst of the lot. Not worse than this team right now, but worse than the lot in terms of all the other World Cup teams. But they reached the semifinal through being the home nation, the support. They really should have got knocked out in the round of 16 by Chile, but they were able to get past that, and then they took on a strong Colombia team and played probably their best game in the tournament in that game, Brazil, and then they ended up getting trounced 7-1, really getting exposed for the fraud run that they were on. But other than that, this Brazil team has not made it past the quarterfinals since they won it all in 2002. So it's a difficult place Brazil finds themselves in general. But we'll see what happens tomorrow. Very important Brazil gets it done. I think Brazil will be able to get it done. I think it'll be tight, but I think they'll be able to find the breakthrough through the likes of Endrick potentially coming off the bench, maybe Rafinha, maybe Rodrigo, maybe Vinicius decides to show up for Brazil, who knows, but I think they'll get it done. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we will be previewing Italy versus Switzerland.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB, MMA, UFC, fantasy football, and so much more. GSMC Sports Network has shows running all day long, with new sports shows starting every 2 hours. Just like on your favorite cable sports channel, except GSMC Sports Network is absolutely free. Just search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube to catch one of your new favorite shows, like the GSMC College Football Podcast, Chip Shot Football Podcast, Hoops and Heels Women's Sports Podcast, GSMC Basketball Podcast, and so many more. Check it out for yourself. GSMC Sports Network, now available on YouTube absolutely free. Search GSMC Sports Network on YouTube right now.
Before the break, we discussed Brazil and their Copa America as they look to get back on track versus Paraguay. We move on to preview the match between Italy and Switzerland, the European round of 16 tie, the first tie that we actually get. We're going to be previewing the 2 games on Saturday today, and we'll be previewing the 2 games on Sunday tomorrow. So we start off with Italy versus Switzerland. Really big game. This is the game, in my opinion, is the most interesting of all the European round of 16 ties, because it's 2 evenly battled teams, right? In terms of quality, in my opinion, very even. I think based on form and based on performance levels and just overall the better team has to go to Switzerland, just based on what we've seen at this European Championship. I think Switzerland has been more consistent. They've been more braver. They've been more forward-going, been more energetic. Have had a really, really good tournament. While you look at Italy, on the other hand, they started off decently well in Albania, especially in that first half, and then in the second half, in the second game against Spain, just get completely played out of the park, out of the world, just get completely outplayed. And then in that closing game against Croatia, looked pretty shaky, not create much, play sort of on the block, and it took them a last kick of the game goal to get past Croatia and to move on out of that group. So, it's clear that Italy is concerning. It's clear that Italy, they're kind of not lucked their way, but it's been very difficult to find themselves through, and they really could be out of this tournament if it wasn't for that last kick of the game goal to end that group stages. But it don't matter at that point no more. It doesn't matter how you get there. It matters that they're here, and they have every opportunity to make the best out of this opportunity that they have on playing on that bottom side of the bracket, which is the worst side of the bracket. And they'll start off against Switzerland. Now, based on performance and all that, Switzerland, they played better, right? But when it comes to footballing culture, footballing heritage, all that, Italy has more, in my opinion, has the advantage, and I think that is an advantage. I don't know how to explain it. It's kind of like the Champions League. I don't know how to explain why it's a factor and how it can affect, but it does. It can affect it. The fact that Italy have all the culture, all the history, all the tradition, it will be a factor in this game. I don't know how. I can't explain. It's something that you can't explain, but it just is. Like, it always proves to be a factor and to be a big factor. And I think that is enough. That might be enough to push Italy through in this battle, despite Switzerland being the better team at this point in time that we find ourselves in. Now, Italy, and keep in mind, Italy have a lot of these players that are experienced in terms of going on a run at a European Championship. They've had multiple players that have won the European Championship. Bastoni was part of that squad. Donnarumma was was the goalkeeper for that team. Niccolò Barella, Federico Chiesa, I believe Di Marco was part of that squad too. So these are players that were playing, that were part of that team, and that are that will be huge for them in this game. Yes, of course, but the performance levels from Italy has not been good enough at this European Championship. There's no two way about it. Luciano Spalletti came in, and you're thinking, we're all thinking, oh, he's gonna bring this high flying type of attacking display that we see from Napoli, high intensity, very open, very attack oriented type of style of play. You're expecting to see that for this Italian national team, and we saw that for about a 15-minute stretch against Albania, 20-minute stretch against Albania, and we have not seen it much else in this tournament. They've been rather more closer to their traditional Italian ways of defending, not playing like a park the bus, but playing a little bit tighter, playing a little bit more deeper back the field, and that has been a little bit not concerning, but if you are gonna play that sort of way, well, you need guys that can play in transition, and Italy doesn't have really the attackers to do that. And in general, the attacking from Italy is pretty lackluster. I think defensively they are pretty strong. Now they will be missing Calafiori, who's actually huge in scoring in that goal that sent them into it. He was the one that made the run, that was able to find Zaccagni, who was open to get that goal. So that's going to be a big miss, not primarily because of his defensive abilities. I think you bring in a guy off the bench like Buongiorno. I think he's a very, very good center back, and I think he's a very good defender. But what he does not give you is his ability to play out of the back, to be comfortable on the ball the way Calafiori is. So I think there is that a little bit different element in him defending. I think defensively, in terms of his defensive qualities, I think he gives you a little bit more, honestly, than Calafiori. But he doesn't have that ability to play on the ball, to kind of, to make, to show what Calafiori did on that goal, or to play out of the ball with Calafiori's ability to play pass the ball. You don't really get that from Buongiorno. So that will be a big miss in that game. And Italy need to be very clever in the way that they play, because Switzerland, they do have players that can play vertical, that will make those runs in behind. And Bastoni, Darmian, and Buongiorno, if he's the one that starts, need to be aware of that. They really need to be tight and close the spaces. I think it's also important that Jorginho, what he did really well, especially whenever in the Champions League, whenever Chelsea went on that run, the combination of him and Kovacic, they were really, really good at covering the spaces between the center halves, between the middle center halves and the outside center backs, Jorginho and Kovacic, or Jorginho and Kante. I think Jorginho and Barella, that's going to be important, because Switzerland, they will make those vertical runs in between. They will find the spaces and they'll make those runs. And I think Italy need to be very, very tight and be wary of those. I think it's important for whoever is playing up top, whether it is Retegui, which I don't think it should be. I think it should be Scamacca. I think Scamacca just gives you more in terms of general play than Retegui. And Retegui, yes, maybe he's a better goal scorer or better finisher than Scamacca, but he doesn't really get opportunities to finish because, there's not much ability to create within this Italian team. I think Scamacca, being able to drop in midfield and spring the ball out wide, he gives you just a little bit more in terms of general play. But as far as Italy, though, goes, in terms of, or as far as Switzerland, as far as Italy goes, whoever is playing up top or in the midfield, they need to be clever in giving up not giving up too much space for Granit Xhaka, not being able to pick you apart. I think if you put pressure on Granit Xhaka, it makes the game a lot more easier. It really does for you. Now, if you give Granit Xhaka time and space to scan and do whatever he wants, then you're asking for the Swiss to carve you open, because he has that ability to make it happen. And it's important for Italy to do that. They also can't play too timid. Now, I say play tight, make it compact, don't allow the vertical runs to break you, but you got to find the right balance of not getting sucked too deep to where you can't play out. And that will be if Italy find themselves in that situation, that is dangerous. Now, can Switzerland, are they able to do what Spain does? No. So I don't think that'll be a major concern. In Italy, they have to be the main foot. They have to be the one in terms of being the protagonist. They have to be the one that is attacking. They have to play with the sense of belief that and I think the fact that they are Italy, when I say football culture, football heritage, I think they'll play with the sense of belief that they are the better team, which I think will make them even more deadly and make make it harder on Switzerland. So I will say Italy will be able to get it done. I think the culture, the tradition, I think will get through. I think Italy will make it happen. And I think they'll find themselves on a potential deep run at these European Championships, primarily or almost single-handedly because of how weak their opposition will be in terms of who they'll take on in the not the Swiss game, but beyond. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll be previewing Germany versus Denmark.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
Before the break, we previewed Italy versus Switzerland. We move on to preview Germany versus Denmark. In my opinion, this is one of the more interesting games also in the round of 16. One of them, because honestly, a lot of these round of 16 ties are not the most competitive, which is good in the fact that, if all the good teams, of all the big teams, let's not say good, everybody is good once they reach the round of 16, but all the big teams, if they're able to take care of business, it will make the quarterfinals extremely interesting. And it's a little bit disappointing that Spain, Germany, France, Portugal are all on one side of the bracket, because, we like to see, because, a lot of those teams will take each other out, and we won't get as much big games because of it, especially later on in the tournament, but we'll get them games eventually. We'll just get them a little quicker, but still. But this game, in terms of Germany, Denmark, it's an interesting game in that, this is Germany. This is going to be their opportunity to win their first knockout stage game since the 2016 European Championships. That is 8 years ago. That's an unbelievable and ridiculous stat, in my opinion. This is a team that just won the World Cup 10 years ago. If you told them at that point, yeah, you get a few wins in the European Championship in the knockout stage 2 years later, then you'll go on a 8-year drought and counting. Man, unbelievable. Almost as crazy as Italy's World Cup stat. I believe the Italy World Cup one is actually mind-boggling. The last time Italy won a knockout stage game at the World Cup was the 2006 World Cup final that they won it all. That is the last time they won a knockout stage game at the World Cup. Unbelievable statistic. And yeah, this is not that crazy, but it's still a crazy stat, because you never think of Germany going on this bad of a run, but they've been on a very bad run in terms of their national team over the past few international tournaments. But this has definitely by far been the most successful, because they reached around the 16 at the last Euros, but it It was very, very shaky, reached around the 16s. It took a last few minute goal by I believe it was Goretzka to equalize against Hungary at home, by the way, to even reach the knockout stage games, where they immediately got knocked out by England. Now, this day and age where we find ourselves in, it's a more optimistic point of view from Germany when you look at how impressive that they were in the group stage games, going unbeaten, starting off with a 5-1 bang over Scotland, and then replicating that with taking care of Hungary in very comfortable fashion. Now, in that Switzerland game, you thought that there was a little bit of signs of same old Germany, but they were able to do what they weren't able to do in past few tournaments, which was find the breakthrough to get it done. And at the end of the day, Germany got it done. They were able to get that goal in that last minute, tie the group, to win the group, and it was an amazing win for them, because now they don't have to play Italy. Instead, they take on Denmark, which is, in my opinion, an easier game for them. But it did put them on the harder side of the bracket, but that was just out of their control, honestly. So a little bit, in my opinion, a little bit shows the flaws of this European Championship with the knockout stage games, how it works with the third place teams making it so tricky and all that. And anytime you get France, Spain, Germany, Portugal all in one side, even in Belgium, all in one side of the bracket, it's clear that there's some sort of flaws within the system. But that's not what we are here to talk about. We're here to talk about Germany and Denmark. Germany, clear favorites, playing home European Championship, but playing home also comes with pressure, also comes with expectations, and it makes it tricky for them, because the longer it goes 0-0, the longer the crowd gets a little bit restless, the more pressure that grows on these German players. Some of these players are a little bit inexperienced too at this sort of level. When you look at Musiala, in terms of knockout stage football, he's never... I know he was part of the 2021 team at the Euros, but he didn't play much, and he never played a knockout stage game in the 2022 World Cup. This is the first time he'll be starting and playing it in the knockout stage game. Same with Florian Wirtz. Same with Jonathan Tah, Maximilian Mittelstadt. There's a lot of players that haven't had much experience in this sort of situations, but they do have also World Cup winning experience with Thomas Muller on the bench and Toni Kroos. So there is that experience up there. Add Kai Havertz to the list of inexperienced players at this sort of level as well. So it's a good blend for Germany, but the worst thing that can happen for them is the longer stay 0-0. It's important for them to find the breakthrough early, to relieve the pressure, to make it easier for them, because if they're able to get that goal early, it'll make it really, really easier for them. As far as Denmark, in terms of general play, they've shown they're a proper footballing nation. They made the semifinals of the last Euros. They can play football in terms of midfield. You look at Eriksen, Højbjerg, very solid players that can retain the ball, that can gain possession of the ball, that can protect the ball. You look at defensively, Vestergaard, Christensen, Schmeichel and Cole, Jacob Mæhle, wingback. They have very good solid pieces that can play football, that can make it an outfit. The thing about Denmark, though, is their attack. Their attack has been weak, not just at this tournament, but the last World Cup. They really lack that cutting edge in attack, that quality in the final third that really, that can really make teams pay. They don't have that guy up front. Højbjerg, he's the guy right now. Not Højbjerg. Højlund, Rasmus Højlund. He's the guy up there at this point in time. And I think he's had pretty disappointing European Championships, in my opinion. Yes, he has pace. Yes, he can stretch the back line, but his pace has not really done much. He's been lively, but not in dangerous areas of the pitch. The service hasn't been great, but at the same time, he has not been playing well. Denmark, they've scored 2 goals at the European Championship. That's just not enough. The first goal kind of came off of a quick throw-in that kind of caught the Slovenian defense off guard, and then the second one was a wonder goal by the Danish midfielder in that England game. And despite them having a lot of the possession, especially in the first half against Slovenia, and a lot of the game against England, they never really seemed like a legit threat to score the goal, because it just was clear that they lacked that cutting edge, lacked that ability in the final third, which is the reason why they're not, which is the main reason why they didn't win that group. Because in terms of general play, their general play is good, but they're just not clinical enough in that final third. They don't create enough clear-cut opportunities, in my opinion. And when they do, they don't finish them. And, you can have in terms of general play, you can be really, really good. But if you can't get in the ball at the back of the net, you're going to go home early. And that might be the reason. I think against this Germany team, Germany are going to... And look, Germany are going to play a really high line. They're going to play a heavy intensity in terms of pressing high up, putting guys forward. They're going to play a very open-ended game. And they'll give the opportunities for a guy like Rasmus Højlund to make runs in behind with his pace. He's going to have an opportunity to have an effective game, to really be a good outball for them. I think we're going to see a little bit more of a direct element with this Denmark team, more direct than they usually are, just because of how high Germany play. I think there will be a lot of opportunities to play that ball in behind. I think Manuel Neuer is going to have to be big for Germany, maybe have to replicate a sort of performance that he had in the 2014 World Cup against Algeria, where he was almost a sweeper goalkeeper. I think that might be important in this sort of game, because Rasmus Højlund does have pace, and I think Denmark with Højbjerg, Eriksen, they got the players that can pick out a ball and to Højbjerg and Jonathan Tah and Rudiger. They're gonna really have to be up for it, because Rasmus Højlund does have pace. So that will be an opportunity for Denmark. But again, will they be clinical if they're able to create opportunities? Will Højlund be clinical? Will a guy like Yusuf Poulsen, who's coming off the bench, will he be clinical? Whoever plays alongside Rasmus Højlund, will he be clinical? Which has been a tricky position for Denmark. They have not been able to solve that at this European Championship. The main guy up front next to Højlund, first game it was Jonas Wind that played against Slovenia, against England. They continued with Jonas Wind. I think he's solid, but he's not really a game changer, in my opinion. I think Kasper Dolberg has a little bit more of a capacity to score a goal, in my opinion. I think he's more, could be a little bit more dangerous. He had a big European Championships. Maybe he can come in to be a factor. I don't know. I think at the end of the day, Denmark just lacks that clinicalness, lacks that cutting edge in the final third. And I think Germany will have enough. It'll take a breakthrough moment. They will need some sort of lucky break, or not lucky break, but they'll need to find that individual moment to get that goal. Once they're able to get that, if it comes early for them, it's even better. But if they're able to get that, it'll be smooth sailing from there. I don't think Denmark has the capabilities to go a goal back against this Germany team, and really, because they're not going to be able to take the ball and be as progressive as they were against England, against Germany. Germany are just too good for that, They're not going to, drop into a shell the way England does. So I think if they go a goal behind against Germany, they'll be in big, big trouble. Short break here coming up. When we come back, we'll react to some of the top headlines in the soccer world. Before the break, we reacted to Germany. We previewed Germany versus Denmark. We move on to react to some of the top headlines going on in the soccer world. First of all, this actually came out yesterday. I wasn't able to cover it yesterday. But Man United came out, or not came out, they didn't really say this, but like sources report that Man United are expecting Jadon Sancho and Mason Greenwood to be at preseason. They expect both of them to report back to training, assuming they have not left the club by the start of preseason, which is set to start on July 8th for them. For all the players that are not playing in the European Championship or Copa America, players are expected to report back to Carrington on July 8th. Now the club are working to find Jadon Sancho and Mason Greenwood new clubs. That's always been the case, but there is a potential chance that they will remain as United players by the deadline, which comes, and then if that's the case, they will be expected back in training. Greenwood, it's been reported that Lazio, Juventus, Napoli, and Marseille all want him. This will be the first time that he'll be training at Manchester United since 2022, the beginning of 2022, January 2022. Prior the suspension following the fact that he was arrested on the attempted sexual assault and the controlling and coercive behavior and assault. Now the case ended up being dropped a year later for Mason Greenwood, and he was able to restart his career when he was sent on loan to Getafe last season, which he had a half-decent season, suffered a lot of abuse at Getafe, but he did have a half-decent season. Now the 24-year-old, not 24-year-old, but it's clear that United, they're not going to continue with the Greenwood because of those issues. So, they're going to look as a way to get him out as soon as they can. Now, Jadon Sancho, that one is a little bit more unique one in the fact that this is a player that is a United player that was signed here. No off-the-field baggage, none of that. Just, not being able to replicate the form that he has at Dortmund, at Manchester United, then being sent back to Dortmund, where he started on a team that went to the final. Actually had a decent second half of the season, especially that game against PSG. Never showed a performance to that level at United. The 24-year-old, who, as I said, he spent his last season at loan at Borussia Dortmund. He has actually not trained with United despite being on the squad since he fell out with Ten Hag in September, and he stayed on the team till January. You can't be loaned out in the middle of the season, but he still did not train with them. There are sources that say that Sancho has been offered to Barcelona and Juventus, but United want around 40 million for him, which they're not gonna get at Jadon Sancho at this point in age, especially with teams knowing, with the fact that United are having to offer him up, kind of diminishes his value. Now United, they're gonna try to get these two out of there by the deadline, the January deadline. I don't think they will, but they're gonna try to get it done, and it's interesting. It's interesting to see how the situation goes. Antoine Griezmann. There's potential talks about him not having a diminished role at the European Championship going forward for France. You look, France, they were played a main starting lineup against Poland, and they went with their first team. Upamecano, Saliba, Theo Hernandez, Joel Koundé, Tchouameni, Kante, Rabiot, Dembele, Mbappe, but there was no Griezmann that was not in this game. Instead, it was Bradley Barcola, and it's interesting because at first, I'm trying to think, whoa, what is going on here? Then maybe you're saying, oh, he's just giving the older guys or one of the older guys rest, but N'Golo Kante is still playing in this game, who happens to be of the similar age range of Griezmann. So you're thinking, that is Antoine Griezmann, is this a sign of things to come? Has he been disappointed in Griezmann's performance for for France at this European Championship. He did miss a few opportunities in that Netherlands game, in both games, honestly. Two huge missed opportunities in that 0-0 draw against Netherlands. And it's clear, the way Deschamps plays, the way France play under Deschamps, it's clear they need somebody that's clinical, because they're not a team that creates a boatload of opportunities that completely dominate a game. They're a team that wins on moments. But and he's been and he has had a goal drought for France. He scored only 2 of his in the last 30 games that he's played for France. He's only scored in 2 games, which is not a good form at all. It's a huge goal drought that he has with France. Yeah, it's interesting to see whether or not he will be in that starting lineup as they take on Belgium. Griezmann did come out in a presser saying that he didn't come out in a presser, but in a report that came from L'Equipe, he was irked. That was the word used, irked about the decision, and that he was a little bit that he was disappointed and frustrated by the choice, which really kind of proves to me that this is not a resting situation, that this is one of Deschamps' choice. He also said he doesn't believe that he's suffering physically from the amount of games and that he didn't need to be rested. That's what it's like reports are saying from L'Equipe. But yeah, it's just an interesting situation that Deschamps has. He really does trust his players. He really does have faith in the guys that has done it for him. When you look at his reluctancy to go to Saliba until up to this European Championship, how reluctant he has been. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to say the least. I'll be very interested to see if he's starting against Belgium. The U.S. Soccer Federation has came down and condemned to racist abuse going against the players after the loss to Panama. You saw Folarin Balogun, what he posted, some nasty, evil comments from some so-called fans. I haven't, Wea, he's also been a target of abuse because of that red card, and other members. And the U.S. Soccer Federation came out in a statement saying it was deeply disrupted with the racist comments made online. It's really unacceptable this day and age. What's going on. The U.S. Soccer Federation also came out and said there's also absolutely no place in the game for such hateful and discriminatory behavior. These actions are not only unacceptable, but also contrary to the values of respect and inclusivity that we uphold as an organization. Or the USF said they will also offer mental health services to any player or staff member that requests it. There's also a governing body of the Copa America CONMEBOL that they have reported that this abuse too, which I don't know. It's interesting the fact that what can CONMEBOL do? This is a CONCACAF federation. How they could really address racist fans that are racist U.S. fans? I don't understand that. What can CONMEBOL do? What sanctions do you want them to do? I don't really understand that, but they did it reported. CONMEBOL also came out in a statement saying, our organization works continuously towards the evaluation of a new culture that eradicates expression of racism, offensive content on social media, and all forms of violence or discrimination. We condemn attitudes of intolerance in every place and on every occasion, especially those hiding behind social media accounts. Look, racist abuse should never occur. It's really sad and disrupting that we're at this point in time, This is not a U.S. soccer fan issue. This is just a global issue. There's the same issues going on in the Europe, and it's something that education needs to increase, and so that so this kind of things don't continue to happen. Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. We have a great show for thank you for tuning into the GSMC Soccer Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Make sure you like and follow the show. Please remember to subscribe to the show and leave a positive review. It really does make a difference. We also invite you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram for more content updates. Thank you once again, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.